everyone, welcome back to Callie and Beans Books. I'm Brittany, and today I have a wrap-up of my least favorite reads of 2020. Now, I have 7 books that I'm going to discuss today. These were the ones that I was either really looking forward to and just didn't like, disappointed by the outcome, or were just plain bad to me. Of course, this is nothing against the story, and if you liked it, I'm glad that you enjoyed the story. I just personally did not enjoy them. Kicking it off is a favorite among people, which I just did not like, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I did give this a 3 out of 5. Overall, I did enjoy the story. I did like the way it was written. I enjoyed the concept. There were just moments that were cringy to me, cliche, and there were also the adult scenes that I didn't like. This is one book that I was really looking forward to reading because it was so well hyped that when I did read it, I was like, I don't know why everyone loves this so much. It was good, it was enjoyable, but to me, it just fell short. The next story I want to mention was also a read during my February Romance-a-thon, and that was My Favorite Half-Night Stand by Christina Lauren. I went into it expecting to really enjoy the story. It was okay. I think the main reason I didn't like it was I didn't like the concept of the story as I was reading it. Going into it, I thought it was a really interesting idea, but as I was reading the series of events around the plot, it just wasn't for me. It was kind of cringy. It was one of those where I'm like, you should just tell him how you feel, and it just didn't happen. And there was a lot of secrets and hiding, and it just didn't feel good reading the story, if that makes sense. So that's why it was one of those disappointing ones, because I went into it expecting a lot and got a little in return. Going off that, I also read another one of Christina Lauren's books, Love in Other Words, and it was kind of the same outcome. I went into it really expecting a lot and had to kind of change gears on how I look at Christina Lauren's books. Maybe it's just those two, and going forward, I'm going to really enjoy their books again. But right now, it's just leaving a bad taste in my mouth just because I set myself up to really love these books and they just fell flat. Overall, Love in Other Words was drawn out to me and didn't feel like a lot was happening, and the dual timeline was throwing me off as well. So that was another story that was just not my cup of tea this year. The last adult romance that I'm going to mention is definitely the worst read of 2020 for myself. I probably should have just DNF'd it because I was so put off by it. And that was I Owe You One by Sophia Kinsella. I did not like this story. I should have just put it down and just ignored it, but there were moments where I'm like, oh, maybe this story will get better, and it didn't. And I'm like, okay, cool. I just wasted a day reading this story. It was one of those that caught my attention in Target. I got it. I was like, this is going to be a fun little cute adult romance read for me, and it just fell short. Maybe it was because it took place in London, so there were some references that I just didn't get. But overall, it was the main character. She was just annoying, and I don't like annoying main characters. I don't mind flawed main characters. The annoying ones drive me nuts. Everything she did was just like, why are you like this? I got it out of the way. I read it. It was a 2 out of 5. I returned it to Target and got my money back, so there was a positive out of the reading experience, but definitely the most disappointing read of 2020 for myself. Sticking on the romance vibes, but going into contemporary, going into young adults, the next book I'm going to mention is Don't Read the Comments by Eric Smith. This is also what led me into thinking I just can't read a contemporary anymore, just because I was so disappointed by it. The writing style was very cheesy. The concept was really cool, but the main character was a little annoying, and it just wasn't my thing. Overall, I did really like the male main character. I thought he was funny. I thought he was creative. It's just there were other moments of the story where I'm like, this would never happen. And that's one thing with contemporary that I do really enjoy in some aspects is they are realistic. It's fictional, but there are moments where you can connect with the story and be like, okay, yeah, this could happen. But with Don't Read the Comments, it just did not feel like I could connect with the characters and be like, these dialogues just don't make sense. So that's why it was a disappointment for me. Again, it was one that I gave 3 out of 5. And I think next year in 2021, when I read books that I don't like, I'm actually going to rate them as such and not just be nice and give everything a 3 that I don't like. Because there are some books that I did really enjoy. They just weren't perfect. That I can go back and be like, no, I did really like this book. These disappointments that I rated a 3, I'm like, maybe it's lower. Hindsight's 2020 on that. Overall, that was one I came out of it thinking, I don't think I can read contemporary anymore. And I did a whole video on that, but I'm slowly going to get back into trying other books. I do have contemporaries on my shelf that are really interesting to me that I do want to read, along with, of course, adult romance. That was the most disappointing contemporary that I've read in a while. So I had 2 YA fantasies that I'm counting out as the most disappointing for me for 2020. The first being A Whole New World by Liz Braswell. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Overall, I did enjoy the story. I thought it was a really cool, dark and twisty version of Aladdin, but there were just moments where it wasn't very different from the original story, and it just felt like nothing was really happening for a good middle chunk of the story. It just felt like, okay, they're doing this and it just seems repetitive in different ways, but it was interesting and I did overall enjoy it. It's just kind of disappointing with how interesting the twist sounded, and then going into it, it wasn't really that thought out, in my opinion. Now, the last book I want to mention, I did just talk about in my book corner for the month of November because it took me forever to read, and that is The Night Country by Melissa Albert. I think this was one of my most anticipated reads going into 2020, and it took me a while to pick it up because it's a spooky story, so I wanted to read it during Halloween, and wow, was it disappointing. I did give it a 3 out of 5. Go figure, because there were moments that were redeeming. There were moments where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But then a lot of the book, I just felt like nothing was happening, and that there were moments that happened just to happen, and I'm just like, this isn't great, which is really sad for me because I was really anticipating the next part of Alice's story. Looking back, I'm pretty sure Hazelwood was meant to be a standalone, so having it be a duology is really confusing because there really wasn't anywhere for the story to go, so I felt like everything was just mishmashed together and just kind of thrown together, and it kind of threw me off. So overall, I really enjoyed the ending. I did like how everything tied up and the story feels completed now. There are moments in The Night Country that didn't need to happen and just felt drawn out. So that's why it was definitely one of my disappointing reads for 2020. So overall, I did have a really good year. I could only find 7 books out of the 45 that I have completed in the year of 2020 that were really disappointing for me. And some of them, they weren't disappointing because they were bad books. They were disappointing because I went into it with these high expectations and I just didn't enjoy them as much as other books that I've read. Looking forward to the other 2 videos that I will be putting out this month are 2 top 5 wrap-up videos for my YA fantasy and my adult romance. So those will be coming out later this month, and of course Callie and Bean have amazing videos lined up for you guys. So be sure to subscribe to our channel. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Head over to Goodreads and Instagram. All of the links for our accounts will be in the description below. And until next time, bye.